Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Licensing and Registration Committee meeting on Monday, the 2nd of February 2026. Move to item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence and substitutions.
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from Councillors Amos, Davidson, Davis and Thompson with no substitutes appointed.
Thank you. We'll move to item 2 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the last meeting, which can be found on pages 7 to 10. Item 2, to confirm and sign. Do we have...
I'm happy to propose.
Councillor Wiggins and Councillor Smith. Thank you. We'll move to item 3 on the agenda, which is declarations of interest. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I'd like to declare that I am a licensed London taxi driver but have no bearing or interest on tendering itself.
Thank you. Anyone?
Also, for the record, I will confirm that Councillor Smith sought my advice as the portfolio holder under which caravan licensing and environmental health both fall. However, I confirmed as the monitoring officer that he's not required to declare an interest or remove himself from the committee because these are non-executive functions.
Thank you. Now move to item 4 on the agenda, questions on notice pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 38.
We've received no such questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now move to our next item, number 5, which is report of the Assistant Director of Housing and Environment, A1 Caravan Licensing, proposed fees and charges for 2026/27, which can be found on pages 11 to 20.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Grant Fenton-Jones, the Environmental Health Manager at Tendring District Council. I'm here to present this report to get the committee's approval for the proposed fees and charges for 26/27 relating to the licensing of residential mobile home sites. The schedule reflects a 2.4 inflationary uplift and continues to ensure full cost recovery in line with statutory requirements under the Caravan Sites and Control of Development Act 1960, as amended by the Mobile Homes Act 2013 and the Provision of Services Regulations 2009. The report outlines the legal framework, financial considerations and fee setting principles applied, noting that the fees may only reflect the reasonable costs of administering and monitoring the licensing regime. Updated figures for all application types, annual licensing fees and annual associated licensing functions are presented in Appendix A for approval. These will take effect from the 1st of April 2026. Approval of the updated fees will support the Council's financial sustainability, ensure compliance with our legislative duties and maintain effective regulation of residential mobile home sites across the district.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions at all? No questions. I'd just like to point out, which reading through on page 18, it was obviously very interesting that you do monitor all of the prices and the costings, and that it's not used to generate a profit, which is really good to see. So if there are no questions, we will move to the recommendations. It's recommended that in respect of the schedule of licensing fees and charges for the 26/27 for housing and environment, licensing of residential mobile homes set out in Appendix A, that 1, that the current fees and charges in place since April 2025 are set out in column A of Appendix A to be noted. Noted? Yes. Yep. And 2, that the proposed fees and charges for 2026/27 set out in column B of Appendix A be approved with effect from April 2026 and 3, subject to 2 being approved, the Assistant Director for Housing Environment be authorised to publish the approved fees as necessary in accordance with the relevant legislative provisions. Agreed? Yep, that's all.
Councillor Casey, you moved? Yes. And seconded?
Councillors.
Councillor Cousins. Thank you.
So we'll move to our next item on the agenda, which is item 6, report of the Assistant Director, Housing and Environment, A2, proposed fees and charges for animal and beauty licensing, 2026/27, can be found on pages 21 to 32. Thank you.
Thank you. This report presents the committee with a proposed schedule of fees and charges for animal and beauty licensing for the financial year 2026 to 27. It outlines the current fees for 25 to 26 and seeks approval for the updated charges to take effect from the 1st of April 2026 in line with our statutory requirements. The Environmental Health Service is permitted to set locally determined fees on a cost recovery basis as supported by the Provision of Services Regulations 2009 and also other relevant licensing legislation. A standard 2.4 inflationary uplift has been applied across most licensing categories to reflect the increased operating costs and maintain financial stability while ensuring fees remain reasonable and proportionate. There is one key change for 2026/27, and that's the introduction of new fees associated with animal welfare primate licences England Regulations 2024, which come into force on the 6th of April 2026. This establishes a licensing regime requiring zoo-level welfare standards for all privately kept primates. We have had no applications currently in tendering, which we're pleased about, but the council must adopt a fee strategy for that, so they are included in this report this year for the first time. The report details the underpinning financial context, legal framework and cost recovery principles, and highlights that the failure to uplift fees may place additional pressure on the council. Appendix A sets out a full list of existing and proposed changes. Therefore, the committee is asked to note the current fees and approve the proposed 2026/27 fees and authorise publication in accordance with our legislative requirements. Also, just wanted to bring to your attention that I think it's been raised before that there, under this particular licensing report, there is some upcoming legislation with regard to beauty treatment. Now, that has been in the pipeline for some time, but that's not as yet come in. So it's rumoured that it will be late 2026, early 2027. So next time when we put the report through next year, that will include that as well. So just to give you an update that it's expected.
Thank you, much appreciated for that. Do we have any questions? Councillor Smith first.
Sorry, I meant to ask earlier, is there any way we could be more definitive on primates?
Yes, certainly. Monkeys, chimpanzees, is that what you want? Yeah, that's...
Could we include that in, only because obviously we're primates, so...
Okay, sorry. Noted, yeah. No, it's how it's worded, so it's legislation, so...
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Casey.
What is the overall increase? You say it's all gone up. How much has it gone up since last year?
2.4% this year increase across the board.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any further questions? No, I'd just like to make an observation. Obviously, I'm quite pleased that we don't have anybody keeping chimpanzees and monkeys. It's nice to
No,
know.
not at the moment, but it's quite stringent.
But it's good that
yeah.
we've got the policy in place in case it's needed. Right, if there's no further questions, we'll go to the recommendations, which are found on page 22. It's recommended that in respect of the schedule of licensing fees and charges 2026/27 for operations of delivery stroke housing and environment set out in Appendix A, that 1, the current fees and charges in place since April 2025 are set out in column A of Appendix A be noted. Noted? Yeah. Noted from everybody. And 2, the proposed fees and charges for 2026/2027 set out in column B of Appendix A be approved with the effect from April 2026, and subject to 2 above being approved, the Assistant Director for Housing and Environment be authorised to publish the approved fees as necessary in accordance with the relevant legislative provisions. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Wiggins,
Yeah, happy to propose.
seconder. Councillor Cousins. Everybody happy with that?
Yep.
Yep, that's all. All done. Got that. So we will now move to item 7 on the agenda, which is the report of Assistant Director of Corporate Policy and Support, A3, various licensing provisions, applications approved under delegated powers. That can be found on pages 33 to 38. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report is for Q3 of the 2025-26 figures. To update you on the numbers so far going through licensing, you'll see that there's not been very much change over the last the quarter. I've included on page 34 under the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire licensing some further information for you on various information since the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire policy has been adopted in November 23. That includes the Euro 5 vehicles, which are now being removed as of January. We've got 14 remaining on the fleet, and they will come off over the year. We've got a number of vehicles with penalty points that have been endorsed, 114 since the policy is in place. And then the drivers, we've had 16. We've had five drivers attend committee for the points, and 3 vehicles. Since the policy recommendation for new top lights showing the Tendring District Council signage, we've got 59 on the fleet so far. Further down on that report, I've included how did we do survey with some results for your information, and some of the feedback we've actually received. So with that, it's more to note the report, and if you've got any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions of our licence? I'd just like to make the observation on page 35, obviously for the survey that went out. It's really quite pleasing to see, because you normally get people coming back when they're not happy with things, and the percentage of people who obviously are happy with the service, and also to sort of pay some tribute to our really good staff on page 36. You know, people are quick to moan, but it's nice to see these encouraging comments, and we all know how hard our staff do work within the department, so it's really, really pleasing to see that. Obviously, if there are no questions, obviously the recommendation to note the information set out in this report. Do we note this? Yeah? Happy to note. Thank you, Michael. We will now move to item 8 on the agenda, which is the report of the Assistant Director, Corporate Policy and Support, A4 Scrap Metal Policy, which can be found on pages 39 to 52. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is coming back with the scrap metal policy that we submitted at the last committee. Councillors approved that we went through an 8-week consultation period, and that was between October and the end of December, where we went out for the consultation. We've received one response overall, and we've taken them comments into consideration. The amendments are found in the report in red, and that can be found on the Appendix A, page 44 to 51. If members are happy with that, then I'd ask for the recommendations on page 39. Thank you.
Do we have any questions on this one? Councillor Smith.
It's only that I wasn't aware that anyone had checks anymore, so that's quite an odd one to put in. But the policy is superb. I'm always happy for us to recommend policies to move forward. The only other thing I would suggest is, could we have a date on it, or will it be on the 26 rather?
That will be once it's been adopted by Cabinet.
Thank you. And the check? I mean, I don't know that anyone ever... We still do checks, do we? Okay, sorry.
I'm not sure if the council accepts checks, but yeah, there's obviously still checks being used. Some members of my family still send them. Which is of great annoyance.
Any further questions? No? We will move to the recommendations. So the recommendations is recommended that the committee receive and considers the outcome of the public consultation on the draft policy and then determine whether to recommend the policy attached to this report to Cabinet for adoption. And number 2, that subject to one above being approved, Cabinet also be requested to authorise officers to make minor amendments to the policy to ensure that it reflects the operational position of the council and legislative case law relevant to the policy. So can we have a approver for one? Yeah. Councillor Casey and Councillor Smith. Everybody else happy with that? Yep, that's approved. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, my apologies. I've just seen that it says adopted on page 45. That's my fault for missing it.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 9 on the agenda, which is report of the Assistant Director, Corporate Policy and Support, A5 Charitable Collections Policy on pages 53 to 70.
Thank you, Chair. This is another policy that came before you last time. This one went out for consultation as well for the 8 weeks period to a number of people, including licence holders as well, and the Charity Commission. We've had no comments back at all regarding this policy, but there's been a slight amendment which officers have noted during the consultation period. That can be found on page 62 in red. Other than that, the policy hasn't been amended, and I ask for the recommendations. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Smith.
I'd just like to say again, it's a great policy. It is a pity that we do put these out for public consultation. I think it's important that people do respond to them, because we do take note of them, as in the last one where you had one person and you used that to actually work with the policy. But thank you.
Any further questions? No. No, I think it's a very good piece of work, and I think on page 57 I noted the objectives of the proposed charity collection policy attached are to ensure, and the list that we have in front of us there, I think it's really, you know, it picks up on all of those issues that people might be concerned about to make it as fair as possible. So if there are no further questions, we will move to the recommendations on page 53. And the recommendations, it is recommended that the committee receive and considers the outcome of the public consultation on the draft policy and then determine whether to recommend the policy attached to this report to Cabinet for adoption. Do we want to do that? I think we all do, yeah. A proposer and a seconder. Councillor Wiggins and Councillor Cousins. Everybody happy with that? Yep, everybody's happy with that. And 2, that subject to 1 above being approved, Cabinet also be requested to authorise officers to make minor amendments to the policy to ensure that it reflects the operational position of the Council and legislative stroke case law relevant to the policy. Noted, yep. That's all done. So we will now move to item 10 on the agenda, which is report of the Assistant Director of Corporate Policy and Support, A6, licensing enforcement schedule of routine licensing inspections for 2026, can be found on pages 71 to 84.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to update committee on the schedule of inspections carried out last year, 2025, and to invite the committee to consider the routine inspection schedule going forward for this year. You can find it on pages 79 to 84, and you'll find that we've used the same schedule as last year, and I've included a red, amber and green rating to show you where we actually got to in respect of last year, and then we've got at the end of the column the update figures for this year and where we propose to be.
Do we have any questions on this one? No? Councillor Smith.
I'd just like to stress the importance of the inspections and acknowledge that it's an excellent thing that we do.
And it's also nice to see that they are the amber and green and none of the red ones, so that's a credit to the team as well.
In this instance, thank you, Chair. I'm not going to speak as the monitoring officer, which is how you normally hear me, but as corporate director for the area where the licensing team sit, I think this report we should be very proud of this report, as you know, we are reporting publicly the performance of the team, and it also shows the vast range of licences and legislation that the team have to look at and be aware of and keep up to date with on pages 73 and 74. So I think together with the feedback also on the performance that Mr. Cook referred to in the last report, I think shows a very healthy position for the team to be in. Thank you.
And I think the whole committee, I think we're all really proud of the work they do as well. I think they are quite aware, because we know how hard they work under sometimes difficult circumstances. Any further questions? Right, so if not, we will move to the recommendations, which can be found on page 72. So it's recommended that the committee take note of the inspections carried out in 2025, Appendix A. Do we note those? Yep, Councillor Casey, Councillor Smith. Yep, everybody. Yep. And B, considers the need and frequency for routine inspections with a view to achieving compliance with licensing requirements within the remit of this committee, and, if satisfied, endorse the schedule of such inspections as set out at Appendix A to this report, and notes that the licensing manager will then make arrangements within the available resource to implement the endorsed routine inspection arrangements in 2026 and report on the progress to this committee annually. Do we note that? Noted. Yep. Councillor Wiggins and Councillor Cousins. Thank you. I'm not leaving the gentleman out, sorry. We will now move on to item 11 on the agenda, which is the report of the Assistant Director, Corporate Policy and Support, A7, Proposed Licensing Fees and Charges, 2026/2027 licensing section, which can be found on pages 85 to 96.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks the approval of committee for the schedule of fees and charges proposed for 26/27 for the licensing section that deals with the applications under the government directive. The proposed fees and charges can be found on pages 93 to 96. And I ask for committee to look at the recommendation and the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions at all on this one? No questions? No. So we'll move to the recommendations. So it's recommended that the proposed licensing fees and charges set out in Appendix A be approved with effect from April 2026. Note, this recommendation only applies to those fees and charges where the council has the discretion to determine the said fee. And 2, the licensing manager be authorised to publish the Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing fees in accordance with the relevant legislative provisions, should any charges be applicable to advertise. And 3, that further to 2 above, the Assistant Director of Corporate Policy and Support be authorised to consider any objections received and determine the final fees payable in consultation with the chairman of this committee. Do we have a proposer and seconder? Councillor Smith and Councillor Casey. Everybody else? Yes. Agrees? Yeah. All agreed. Thank you. So we will now move to item 12 on the agenda, which is the report of the Assistant Director, Corporate Policy and Support, A8, proposed removal of the fourth member standby for the Premises Personal Licence Subcommittee, found on pages 97 to 102.
I'll introduce the report first, Councillor Casey. So this report hopefully is self-explanatory. At Tendring District Council, we have had a requirement for a fourth standby member for the licensing subcommittees since before I arrived, and I've been joined in 2013. So, and there is no legal requirement to have the standby member. It was initially put in place as I say, some years ago to ensure that the committee could be quora in case anything did happen. I think for all the years we've had it in place, I don't think we've ever had to call upon it. It does mean that we can delay sometimes trying to organise a subcommittee if we're trying to get 4 members as opposed to 3. So it's more efficient for both members, but also for officers when trying to organise the subcommittees. And for those, it is within the Constitution that we have a fourth member. However, the Licensing and Registration Committee can, as the recommendation is worded on page 97, recommend to full council that a constitution is amended if it comes if it's in relation to anything for your terms of reference of the committee. So on that basis, it is our suggestion as officers that the recommendation is on page 97, once moved and seconded by the committee, that it is recommended that the Licensing and Registration Committee request Cabinet to consider and subsequently recommend to full council the Council Procedure Rule 34.5 be amended to remove the requirement for a fourth or standby member to be present at every meeting of the Premises Personal Licences Subcommittee.
Councillor Casey.
Times it's one of those things where you come in here, you can't go over and talk over there, you can't go in there, and you sit here like a lemon for an hour or so, basically, and that's what I'm saying. And I've never ever yet seen anybody, as he said, turn up. And I think it's, how would you say, in an emergency, you can always get somebody in an emergency, but I think it's a great idea to take it away. Amen.
Councillor
I was going to argue to the contrary, only because it's happened to me once where a lady walked in this room. I think there were 4 hearings, and I didn't realise that I knew her. I know it sounds crazy, but I worked at the school. She was a parent at the school. She's also a taxi driver. She took me to hospital the week before, and she recognised me from the school. We were chatting, and I had to leave the chamber. But having said that, I just feel that we need to support our team. I know Katie often finds it difficult to find everybody at the right time to appear. So I do go with what you say. I do, having heard what you have to say, you're totally right. And therefore, I don't think going with the status quo is possibly the right thing after all.
I think that, as Councillor Casey has said, if we came across a situation where someone suddenly realised that they knew someone, there is something we could do. But what we have in place is a rule that is almost never used, but does cause a lot of delay and takes up a lot of resources to put in place that fourth member when we don't need it. You know, we can deal with an emergency probably quicker than we can deal with trying to organise a subcommittee with 4 members.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Casey. Councillor Wiggins?
All I'd like to say is I think that the way that the recommendation has been worded actually is the right wording, because I think that it says what we want it to say, and the fact that you don't have to have the fourth person. You can just have the third person, the 3 people rather. I think that's I think it's very well worded, and I'd be happy to propose it when time comes.
As our monitoring officer has read out the recommendations, you don't need me to read them out again. Do we have a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Casey proposes. I think he deserves that. And seconded by Councillor Wiggins. Yep. All agreed. Lovely. So we now move to our last statement, which is the date of the next scheduled meeting. The next scheduled meeting of the Licensing and Registration Committee is to be held in the Town Hall, Station Road, Clacton-on-Sea, CO151SE at 6:30 on Wednesday, the 22nd of July 2025. I now close the meeting. 2026. I've just given away that I haven't got my glasses on. Only one error. Thank you. 22nd. Thank you. I'll close the meeting.